Nationalist was on, we were talking about Jack Murphy, who used to be a famous sort of conservative influencer who had this club and this podcast and everything like that. And then it turned out that he was into being cucked, specifically his girlfriend sleeping with other people and into putting things in his butt. And we're going to go over all of that. I wasn't like, we weren't conservative influencers when that happened, right? So like we had nothing to say on that when that happened. But when I heard this, my first intuition was to be like, oh, I feel kind of bad for him. Like I didn't have like embarrassing fetishes that I had to worry about like that, like this is what turned him on,
And you
like,
don't get to choose what turns you on, and what turns you on isn't a reflection of your morality either.
Yeah.
Promise me something. My computer's hard drive. I need you to dump it in the bathtub and fry it. All done. Please rest in peace, Satoru.
And it made me think a question, right? Like, I want to go into all of this again, and I want to go into it, as the new right and the tech right is sort of consolidating as an ideological perspective.
Okay.
And you and I are some of the, I'd say, primary regular influencers shaping that ideological perspective. What should be, like, as we uncuck ourselves from the left, as we de-brainwash, deprogram ourselves, what should our perspective be on kink shaming? Like, is kink shaming something that we should continue to do? Is it certain kinks where we should continue to do it? And here I would note, when I talk about kink shaming, I need to be as clear as I can about this. This does not include instances in which somebody else, without your consent, forces you to participate in their kink.
That's very different.
They talk to you about their kink. That means they dress up as their kink in a public context. That means they go to children's book readings in their kink. Here I am talking about things that people do in private. And the reason why I think it's bad to pretend like all kinks are bad is, well, our book, The Pragmatist Guide to Sexuality, we did a survey on this just to see how common kinks are, right? Like non-normative arousal patterns. And we found that the average person is aroused by 22 weird things. People have kinks. People have I need to cut that out because no more swearing on this show, a basket of kinks. It was 23.1 for men and 20.8 for women, so not even like that different. And if you're like, how clustered are these? There was a study of 2,300 people in the UK showing that roughly 75% had some kink. So the vast majority of people have a kink. Our society works because we do not talk about it.
All right, kid, here's the deal. At any given time,
around 75% of the people you interact with are perverts in some way.
Most of them right here in Manhattan. And most of them are decent enough. They're just trying to make a living.
Cab drivers.
Not as many as you'd think. Humans, for the most part, don't have a clue. They don't want one or need one either. They're happy. They think they have a good bead on things.
Well, why the big secret? People are smart. They can handle it.
A person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it. 1,500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was the center of the universe. 500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was flat, and 15 minutes ago, you knew that people were
mostly just turned on by the opposite sex.
Imagine what you'll know tomorrow.
What's the catch?
The catch is,
just because you're aroused by something doesn't mean you have to indulge in it. And that doesn't mean it's okay to talk about this stuff in public. You keep that to yourself, or
you will sever every human contact. Nobody will ever know you exist anywhere, ever. I'll give you the sunrise to think it over.
Hey, is it worth it?
If you're strong enough.
But it's a thing where it's like, you can have something unusual that arouses you without communicating it to other people.
100%. And without acting on it.
And without acting on it. But there's multiple categories here. Like, if it's deleterious to other people, I can see do not act on it, right? If it is, like, there's, if it's like, just you're masturbating to it or something like that, I think that's a very different category than going out and doing it in public. Like, say, if you're gay, right? Well, that might be a too offensive one to choose. What's a less offensive one to choose? Because I was gonna say, like, it's harder to get married and have lots of kids if you don't have a lot of money, if you're gay. So it's better to just, if you're not like a successful tech bro, just not act on it if your end outcome is having a lot of kids. But that doesn't mean that like there's necessarily this huge moral negative to like masturbating to it or something. And by the way, this does reduce the incident of like people like, oh, like masturbating to something makes you want it more. And it's like, no, like the actual studies are very categorical
Well,
on this.
you know, Ayla's latest Substack, as of the time of this recording, is her earnest argument in following up on her most controversial tweet, saying that if we had more AI PDA file porn, fewer children would be harmed. So she's making the same argument.
Well, that is what got me thinking about this, but I wasn't going to include that as part of the argument.
I'm just pointing out what she's saying.
No, I'm saying that gets too spicy. I'm just talking generally kink shaming on the right. But you know, if you look at like porn more generally, like the idea that, oh, porn makes you do bad things, in countries where porn was illegal and then it was made legal, the amount of child SA decreased by 50%. This is
it is clearly, if you care about children, you are not going to ban porn.
Yes, but it's like, okay, when people don't have access, and it was repeated in other countries where they did this. It's just like a really persistent thing. In the United States, as access to the internet increases, which is basically access to porn, rates of sexual assault also go down. Like this is a very clear correlation. You are arguing for an aesthetic and not real, like an individual who says, I am against child SA and I am against pornography is similar to a environmentalist who is like, I am against global warming and I am against nuclear power plants. It's like those two things might be aesthetically aligned, but if you logically actually cared about the first thing, you wouldn't be pro the second thing. Because again, the people who are engaged in this, but what I wanted to get to here was this idea of this guy, what he did, his downfall, other conservatives, because there's other conservatives. The guy who ran the Proud Boys, apparently, he did a thing that apparently a lot of people have criticized him for, being like, oh, you know, anal stimulation in males is something that you can try without being like less masculine, right?
Okay.
And
I mean, just the sheer number of dudes who show up in ERs with, I slipped in the shower and something random up their butt, shows that this is actually way more common than people want to let on.
Well, yeah, but I mean also like biologically, like if you're just looking at like the stimulation points of males, like the anterior prostate is one of the stimulation points that a person could be using.
If we're talking just pure logistics, if you're looking for more ways to feel
if
things.
you're looking for pure logistics of how to maximize your turn on. And the funniest thing about Simone and I is I think one of the reasons we engage in sexuality topics so much is we find it so intellectually perplexing. Like, I think if I actually had like a bunch of skeletons in my closet or something, I wouldn't be doing this because I'd be so afraid. But like, actually, we're more like, yeah, humans, like, sex is gross. Like this whole thing is gross, and you can intellectualize it or engage with it, but some people.
Well, it's like watching, you know, pigeons court each other and being kind of disgusted and asking, why do they do that? That is
but I also, you know, feel like Jack Murphy, for example, he didn't choose to have this. Like he was dealing with an entire category of temptation that I have never had to deal with.
And that's rough.
It's building up an influencer career is hard work. It is a lot of work and a lot of risk. And to have done that and then have that destroyed. No, he did other things when he was caught with this. You know, we'll get into all that. It made me be like, should we normalize this in the new right? Not the old right. The old right can do whatever the hell they want. Like the religious fuddy-duddies. Okay,
they're always going to be sex negative.
Yeah, only sex in marriage, whatever. Right, but we're not that. You know. So what do we think about this? So let's go into this. So this is, I'm going to be combining some various articles and some various AI asks and stuff like that in like a
Okay.
narrative sense where I felt like it was interesting information.
All
He
right.
incurred the wrath of the online right when he rudely responded to podcaster Sydney Watson asking him about the Cuck article. The article in question was a 2018 piece Murphy wrote on cultivating erotic energy from a surprising source. The source being sending his girlfriend to have sex with other men.
Yeah.
And if I
So
put
he publicly talked about this. It wasn't like it leaked.
no, he publicly talked about this.
Wow.
So if
Okay.
I
So he felt really comfortable
he
about
felt
this.
really comfortable about this. Yeah, if I post the stories
Wow.
here, it's today I sent my adoring, loyal, hot, young girlfriend of 2 years to have sex with a stranger from Tinder. She is currently at his apartment, checked in with me via text, and is presumably sucking and effing her way to a good time. I'm alone
So
writing.
he has
Couldn't
a
be
humiliation
happier.
fetish too. No, that blog post was part of it. He was
Yeah.
jizzing onto his audience with that. That is
That's like including your audience in this, which
Yeah.
again I don't think is great. Like I think that is
Yeah.
like, hey, you guys want to be a part of like me
Yeah, no,
being
you
humiliated?
using an audience to get yourself off. I'm not like no.
Mm. Okay, so in 2015, Murphy wrote an article detailing the experience of his girlfriend to have sex with a stranger from Tinder,
Uh-huh.
describing it as a source of erotic energy. He framed cuckolding as a manifestation of his control, writing, "Today I sent my adoring, loyal, blah, blah, blah." That suggests he was experimenting and intellectualizing with unconventional sexual practices. And then later, after that, Murphy admitted to producing and posting amateur pornographic content with his fiancee around 2019, driven by financial desperation. He stated, "We didn't have any money coming in and there were no jobs at all. I was lost and desperate. So my fiance and I did cam porn at home. People paid us to F on the couch. We made thousands of dollars. These videos live streamed publicly on platforms for tips, included acts with his fiance and solo performances by Murphy."
There's
Some
no problem with
sources-
that. Everyone's consenting there. Everyone wins there because he
Wait.
clearly enjoys this, and she. I guess
Wait,
Okay.
like PJ Media National File claimed that certain solo acts involved Murphy using a dildo for anal stimulation. For example, National File article references a torrent with a username linked to Murphy, Big Beard 1000, containing content under a folder called Bear. Oh, yeah, that is definitely
little
suggesting homoerotic material. But I mean, that's for his audience, right?
Yeah.
Though they did
No,
not.
you have
verify
to know
his
your
new
target
escort
audience, and if you're
concerns
looking
about
to make
downloading such
money,
content.
yeah, no, hold on. He knows his target audience. He needs money. He also enjoys that form of stimulation. I don't think that's as suspicious anymore. I thought that you meant like a personal email that leaked from his computer, but that's totally different now.
As far as specific allegations of gay sex, and again, I have nothing against gay sex, but I do understand why people were like, wait, you're like an alpha male influencer who's been like, follow me to get girls, and this is what you were into. Like, I get the incongruency of that.
Well, there's also just the issue, which you also see with same sex, especially man-man sex, where there's just a very, very strong disgust reaction in many people. And
I
most
agree.
people lack the sophistication to understand that a disgust reaction does not equal this equals morally bad, which is very annoying.
But a ton of males have arousal patterns that an average person, as I've pointed out, is going to, because non-normative arousal pattern. This is why there's the meme of, I'll put on the screen here of the anime where his best friend after he dies takes his computer CPU and throws it in a bathtub.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Amra, promise me something. My computer's hard drive. I need you to dump it in the bathtub and fry it. All done. Please rest in peace, Satoru.
And I'd say for me, what's really funny is like, if you look at my unusual arousal patterns, the truth is I don't think like our audience would find it like weird or disgusting at all.
What's
I
so
think
funny though is like people
progressives
have
would be
actually
apoplectic.
people have sent us emails where they're like, I know exactly what your fetishes are. And Malcolm, not once have they gotten them right.
No, they never have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Progressives would freak out. Progressives would actually like panic.
Yeah.
But right-wing people would be like, what?
Well, okay. Sex negative progressives though, because I think most sex positive progressives know all the kinks and are like,
Yeah,
they're
like,
they're all fine. Everything goes. So yeah, moderate that.
Yeah, I guess I will moderate that. But yeah, so he labeled himself in one thing as heteroflexible, right?
Okay, fine.
So maybe he had, male again, like why is this, again, I don't want to say like and I feel so comfortable talking about this because I am so disgusted by the idea of sleeping with male. I'm like, oh. The like this isn't like my particular closet thing. Like
It's
my
really
particular closet thing, I'm just not gonna touch anything in that category.
No, you're not.
But this, I'm like, come on, guys. Like he was into that. He did it at one point, and now he's monogamously married with kids, right? Like,
oh, with the same woman or someone different?
I think I think it's the same woman.
Oh, that makes me happy. Oh,
well,
it worked out for them.
So I had read that he had kids, and I hadn't read anything about him raising them alone, so I assumed he was married. But no, it turns out that he had kids and was divorced long before he ever became famous, in what he called like a blue-pilled relationship, meaning he didn't probably think much of her or that it didn't go very well. So no, he was not happily married.
I was happy when you heard the trajectory. He really got sort of screwed over by all of this, and I think he was putting out ideas that were so mainstream. He was like partnered with Claremont, like
yeah, that's the problem. But he made a very, very huge and I would think obvious misstep in doing kinky stuff while playing in the conservative realm. But that's the conversation we're having is, should this still be the case? Should being kinky and conservative get you disqualified as an influencer?
Well, I mean, that's the discussion here. And I don't because look,
well, what do you think? I know what I think.
Before I go further, look, you've got to keep in mind there is like a level of debauchery, right? Where it's like, and debauchery should not be defined by non-normative behavior. It should be defined by the effect it has on the self and others. So like in Mormon circles, right? And we talk about like a lot of kinks seem to be bred by what the population did historically, right? Or negative stereotypes. And Mormons were in polygynous relationships historically, which meant that people who are okay with their partner sleeping with other people in front of them would have had more kids historically, or knowing that their partner was sleeping. And so there's been the thing of like wife swapping and husband swapping, where you do everything but full sex. And like, I would find that not just like gross, but like if you had done that with another guy in front of me, I don't know if I could get aroused by you. Like again, like
you
it
wouldn't
be,
be able to. I just know for a fact it wouldn't.
I try so hard. I promise.
I literally have bad dreams where like I'm assaulted, and I don't care about the fact that I'm like, the biggest concern I have at that moment. Obviously, I'm like distressed for many reasons, but the biggest one is, oh my God, Malcolm will never see me as attractive again. That's like the number one thought on my mind, in addition to hating everything else. But like the number one thought is, I know that this is true. And it sucks because you can't control that. You just can't.
Yeah, I can't control that. Like I mean, there might be ways if
I don't think so. I really, Malcolm, I know you now. I know you well enough that it's just not, it would happen. This doesn't make you a bad person. Again, and that is how arousal works. This is not about what you morally condone or not. This is just about how you feel.
But apparently within Mormon communities, this isn't that strong.
Yeah, that clearly doesn't play here, but that makes sense. That
a lot of people are shamed like that this has happened. And I'm like there's been some scandals around this and stuff like this. And it's like, what, like, why? Like, this doesn't seem to hurt anyone involved particularly. Like, I'm like, and if this is the thing that I talked about was like that, the Dursleys, and one of their kid ended up sleeping with one of his assaulting his younger sisters and stuff like that. When you tell someone all sex is bad, all arousal patterns
the
are bad.
Duggars.
The
Oh, you
Duggars,
had me
not the
so
Dursleys.
confused. I was like, is
Yes,
this
the
the
Dursleys,
major
the
fan
Duggars,
fiction
not the
plot?
Harry Potter family, the Duggars. They end up thinking like, well, I'm a bad person sexually. They contextualize themselves that way,
Mm,
and then they normalize other genuinely horrific behavior.
right.
So
And I think people can wonder why I hammer on the topic of sexuality and arousal patterns so frequently. And it's because it really is that central and important to the fight against the urban monoculture, in that it is the core way that the urban monoculture peels people out of traditional cultures. Many people within traditional cultures just don't have fully developed models or healthy ways of relating to their own sexuality. And so the urban monoculture can go, and where you don't have sort of mental scaffolding, they're like, oh, I'll just plug this USB stick in here and put in this self-replicating mimetic set, which will eventually build out an entire world perspective. And they do that within the field of sexuality. That's why so much of the urban monoculture focuses on this sexuality stuff. It's not just the debauchery of the urban monoculture. It's that there are not appropriate defenses in place within many traditionalist cultures during their puberty period, during their late teen years. That's when they're the most vulnerable. And so it is really, really important that we find ways of relating to this that do not produce vulnerabilities. And just saying, well, I'll pretend that all of this doesn't exist, or that everyone's normal, or that blah, blah, blah. Like, all of that is basically serving your children up to the urban monoculture on a platter. As a analogy here, it would be a bit like I think we can all agree pooping is gross. But somebody could be like, well, why are you on your show always talking about pooping? And it's like, well, because for whatever reason, most of the conservative cultures started teaching kids that people don't poop, and that if you poop, you're weird. And I'm like, well, most of these kids, all of these kids are pooping. And if they think that they're gross and weird every time they're doing this, and then somebody else comes along and they're like, actually, you were lied to and abused, and it turns out everybody poops, that's going to be potentially a compelling message to them. Where if you're like, no, both everyone poops, and it's gross and weird, but it's like an ancillary bodily function, and definitely not the purpose of your life. If you make it the purpose of your life, or essential focus of your life, or build rituals around it, that is a waste of your life. I think that is going to be much better at preventing kids from being peeled out.
So I think that like the new right should do a better job of like categorizing different types of non-normative sexual behavior in terms of like acting on versus like one, experimenting when you're young. I first experimenting when you're young, or things you do when you're young. When I say young, I don't mean just like a kid. I mean like up to like, let's
25,
say
23,
21, 22,
23,
like 23.
23.
Like
I think 24, you got to get serious.
Yeah, anything really done before 23 or 24, I'm like full pass, like whatever. Like this guy was
Well, with
talking
the
about,
caveat that with women having a lot of sexual partners can, that's kind
of
of irreversible, so,
course,
yeah.
but women make mistakes, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think if you wipe every woman out of the sexual marketplace who is sexually active before this age, you can say you shouldn't do this. You should know this is going to affect how the partner values you. But in terms of the public stage, like if a conservative influencer woman, it came out that she had slept with a bunch of people before that age, like before 23. Like suppose it came out that like Louise Perry or Mary Harrington or Catherine Pakalak had sex with a bunch of people before 23, and this is at odds with their current like conservative persona, I'd be like, you cannot count that against them. I would like actively attack anybody who tried to shame their adult.
Publicly, yes, but men would have an issue with that, which is why with our daughters, I'd still warn them about
Right,
it.
I agree, but that's not what we're talking about.
Yes, that's
here.
not what. Yeah, we're talking about should you be reputationally disqualified as a conservative influencer based on your history sexually, right?
Right. If anything, I'd feel worse for them. I'd feel like everything that they had done in terms of influence was in part to try to save young girls from their position right now, and they just didn't want to have that publicly associated with them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'd have I would have an ounce of anything but rage in somebody who tried to attack them if that came out. And I think that this is what I'm talking about in terms of like how we categorize this, right? Like
Yeah.
what actually assuming they disclosed it to their current partner before marrying.
Which is important. Yeah.
Which is important, right? You know, and again, I'm not saying that any of them did. I have no reason to believe that any of them did this.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
just giving an example here, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, before the age of 23, I'd say, okay, throw that out. I'd say, and keep in mind, he was here talking about this camming stuff he was doing when he was like 19 or so. Or it's
Oh, it was from the past?
I don't know what he was.
No, it sounds like he published a blog post about his wife doing it as she was doing it.
Whatever. Well, we'll see. I can go back and try to find out how old he was when this stuff happened.
Simone was in the right here. It was as he was doing it, which makes it extra undefensible.
Yeah.
But in terms of stuff like anal play for men, I see no reason why this should be shamed. I understand it, like it goes against norms. It's not like particularly dangerous. It's something they can do as like
Well,
a
yeah,
monogamous
it's also
partner.
not even time consuming. So
yeah, like if it causes them
big
to
thing.
orgasm quicker and get the whole thing over with quicker, then just
then
do it.
Power to the absolutely. So my stance on this is the really big contrast in my view between the left and the right in our modern age is performative activity versus consequentialist activity, and then hedonism versus values alignment. So the way that I look at acceptable sexuality versus non-acceptable sexuality has more to do with, are you putting your sexuality above the pursuit of your values? Like, are you spending most of your time dating people and trying to get new sexual partners? Or are you spending most of your time doing what it is that's meaningful to you? And I think,
how much are you letting your sexuality distract you from your end goal?
Yeah, or like be a part of your identity when that's not at all related to your objective function. Or if your objective function is hedonism, you shouldn't be here. You don't belong here. You belong on the other side.
Well, no, I actually argue that Jack Murphy, if you look at this, he was allowing it to distract him. You know,
he was and so that I hold all of that against him, and also the fact that he was acting on it in a way that logistically would have taken a lot of time, like sitting down with your girlfriend or fiance and saying, listen, I'm really into this. Listen, I want you to go out and do this. I mean, she's also taking a risk going out and having an intimate experience with someone from Tinder. Like, that's not necessarily safe for a woman either. And if she's doing it safely, there's also a lot of vetting that's very time consuming. You have STD testing, you have some kind of due diligence that you're hopefully doing on this lucky gentleman. So, like, really, don't you have better things to do? You really think, like,
you really think, and this is why, and it's funny, again, like all of the stuff that I'm defending here, I would not sit on camera and defend something I actually do for fear that it comes back to me. So when I'm talking about like the like anal stimulation and stuff like that, that is not, I find it like the idea, like the smell.
I think both of us are too squeamish around, like, to handle, like, human bodies aren't our
human bodies are not my thing. Like I'm
like butt stuff is way too human. It's way too human.
That's always been your famous line with me, which is,
I'll do anything for you but anal.
But anal. She literally all the time, like, it's funny that I don't think that's ever been recorded on air or anything that she did this, but like within our personal relationship, it's always like she'll hold my hands and be like, Malcolm, I'll do anything for you but anal.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm just like, why add that when you can just masturbate? Like, that's like a gross additional step. Like, even
well, and I think so. My additional problem with anal, when you have a choice, like when there are other holes available, is the amount of prep and maintenance you have to do.
Yeah, let's go. I'd love to.
Do we have all the gear, do you think?
You know, I've got my hiking shorts.
Yeah? I think I have everything.
Yeah.
Let's get the gear.
All right, Dave.
Good, right?
Yeah, that's great.
What if it rains?
You're right. Let's get the reindeer. You know.
So again, when it comes to, are you spending your time pursuing and maximizing your values? If you do frequent anal, you're following all these steps. But I also hold that for like someone who spends an hour a day doing their hair and makeup. That is just as valueless as someone.
Oh yeah, or somebody
spends
who watches
an hour
like
preparing
football
for
games or something, you know, like
yeah. So like we're not sex negative. We're
wasting time negative.
Hedonism negative.
Yeah. No. I agree with all that, but what I'm saying here is like when I hear like the head of the Proud Boys apparently got canceled for saying something like this, and I was like, no, you shouldn't be doing that. Like,
Mm.
because then, you don't know, your own kids end up into something like this, and you frame this as like this horrifying thing. And then now they're like, okay, well, I guess I'm just a sexual monster. May as well grape my sister, and it's like, well,
Yeah, suppressing
maybe-
this stuff isn't good. And I think knowing about your arousal pathways and possibly even talking about it when it's relevant and whatnot, I have no problem with that. And people shouldn't be shamed for what turns them on and off. But yeah, pursuing it, investing a lot of time into its pursuit, you should just be on the
well, I
progressive
actually
side.
think that this, like, if you're being logical, puts like the new right strictly morally superior to the left around arousal and kinks.
Well,
Because what we're
that's what
saying
every
is,
side thinks they are.
you can have the kinks you want to have, so long as they don't have negative externalities in how you're applying them, and so long as you are not forcing other people to participate in them, which is what you are doing when you dress up that way in public, when you publicly blog post about something like this, when you like all of this is stuff that's done to involve other people in your kinks.
Yeah, without
And
their
I think
consent.
yeah,
And so that's why OnlyFans is different. It is opt-in. And I think that's one of the really underrated great things about OnlyFans is if you have a humiliation fetish, if you have a like public exposure fetish, all those sorts of things, like this is the place where you can do it and make money and everyone consents. And I just think that's beautiful. It's wonderful.
yeah, like, oh, here's a great thing. If somebody, and I don't believe the Russian P tapes are real, if some Russian prostitute really peed on Trump, like, whatever. I
Yeah.
like even think was the right as it is right now. These came out, people would be like, whatever, like,
No
F
one cares.
off.
No
like,
one cares.
like, I'm glad I wasn't born like.
But also, like, everyone knows Donald Trump would never. He's such a germphobe, so it's
yeah,
not
he
his
is.
thing.
He is a complete germaphobe.
He
It,
would
like,
never
doesn't make
do that.
sense.
He seems like the kind of person who would see like the tiniest stain on a carpet and be like, "We need to leave this hotel right now." You think he's gonna do water sports? I know.
I also think that he's a sexual elitist like me. I would not be surprised if he has not slept with prostitutes, and that he only sleeps with, like, he's wrote articles about sleeping with, like, not wrote, but he had articles written about him about how he likes like sleeping with his friends' wives and stuff like that.
Yeah, because they're high status women.
High status. Yeah,
And Stormy
I'm
Daniels was a
very-
high status like celebrity. So yeah, I think for him, status is hotter than a lot
not
of
status
other.
is hotter. I think low status women are disgusting to him.
Oh,
I think
it's an
I'm
aversion
modeling it
thing?
like myself.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, so to continue here, Murphy's own admission of the video's existence, coupled with his attempt to label their redistribution as revenge porn, a claim debunked as the content was widely publicly posted, fueled the narrative. He locked his X account and deleted his tweets, furthering escalated scrutiny. His defense of the questions about the 2015 cuckolding article, particularly lashing out the podcast hoster, the Sydney Watson, is what caused people to get angry at him. From the perspective of manosphere, letting other men have sex with your girlfriend is definitely a no-no and will earn you the ultimate put-down cuck, which is to say cuckold. By the way, cuckolds, both in our data and other data, was more common among conservatives getting cucked by your partner than progressives.
Yeah, isn't
which
that
I
interesting?
found interesting. Murphy's defensiveness toward petrol. Yeah, so a big problem is his defensiveness and sort of how he handled it. Now, what is interesting here is his writings were criticized as misandrist, racist, and aligned with alt-right ideologies, which led to his doxing in 2018. This revelation that he was a senior manager at DC Public Charter School Board resulted in administrative leave in January 2018. So apparently that's when he started leaning into like the Jack Murphy live stuff. And then in 2021, his profile expanded as he became a Lincoln Fellow at the Claremont Institute, a conservative think tank highlighting his influence in right-wing circles. However, December 2021 brought significant personal revelations. He admitted to authoring a 2015 cuckolding article and producing amateur pornography. So the cuckolding stuff he had written when he was still like a public Democrat. And he had the pseudonym that was doing right-wing stuff.
Interesting.
I mean,
So it's fairly complicated.
Yeah, and then during this period, by mid-2022, Jack Murphy Live ceased new episodes, suggesting a withdrawal from his public role. Concurrently, he launched Rebel Health Alliance, a personalized healthcare service focusing on optimizing longevity and metabolic health. And it's something that is still operational and appears to be his mainstream source of income. So one thing I want to look at is the stuff that got him canceled. Like, how actually offensive is this guy, right? Because everyone says, oh, they're misogynist. People say we're misogynist and racist. So he said, feminists need grape. It is our duty as men to save feminists from themselves. Therefore, I am offering to grape to feminists as an olive branch.
He's asking for trouble.
That's asking for trouble. It's provocative. But us saying that like the Handmaid's Tale is leftist fantasy and that the data proves it could be seen as analogous to that.
Yeah.
He
Fair.
said, if you open her you open her mind. He said, this is not something I'd agree. Like, obviously, my wife says, I'm not interested in this. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Oh, I'm not interested in either. But like, okay. Another one here is big female myths is that they are pure. Truth is they are hungry, dirty, and enthusiastic about sex. And I love how feminists don't believe in agency. That is not an offensive statement at all. So he said like almost nothing here wrong from what I can see.
But also, no, I think that sweeping statement is not accurate. That is accurate about some women. Definitely not.
Yeah. Well, okay. Here's one thing that I do have a problem with. He said in one post he wrote, I've had sex slaves, little girls, and tied them all up. Feminists seek me out to F them like the patriarchy. Which the little girls thing, like I can understand it's sexualized, but like maybe you shouldn't say that publicly.
Maybe not.
What I mean is I do not think that he's actually talking about little girls, but I like understand.
DDLL, yeah. Or
yeah.
DLG, yeah. Sorry.
Okay, here it says he's talked about an ethno state where he said the logistics are necessary in the course of events in which leads us towards an ethno state.
Okay.
That's actually something that like I think a lot of people need to think about when you have a large amount of immigrants in a country and there might be a desire to preserve that country in the future, like Germany or something.
Okay.
You got to think about, well, what happens to the immigrants that have been imported into the country? Like how does the country, if it changes its mind about this, handle this, like when it realizes it may eventually go extinct? And like what we mean here is 25% of the German population currently came to the country after the 1950s, or their ancestors did. They have a higher fertility rate than the mainstream German population. Like eventually Germans will be replaced. And this isn't like I'm not saying like some evil person planned this out or anything like this, but that this might lead to ethnic tensions is obvious. And if a far right government came into place, a question of what do you do that isn't genocide is something that is worth establishing so that people don't jump to genocide.
Yeah.
Anyway. And I mentioned the other one who this has happened to, which I found was interesting, is Glavin McKinney's, who talked about butt stuff in straight men and that not being unmanly. And I'm like, well, but like this manly obsession is pointless in the first place. I think
that is, again, it's pretty preening and performative among men as well. And to me, it screams of insecurity. So I really don't care. Like a man who's very comfortable with his sexuality, like there's nothing more masculine, and whether this is demonstrated by a man or a woman, than confidence and comfort with your sexuality and being very open about it. That's a lot of confidence, and that's very masculine. And this whole like shaming thing, there's nothing more feminine than public shaming and gossiping.
Absolutely, yeah.
So this whole masculine stuff is very, it's not the right brand. I think it's not the brand that conservatives necessarily want to project, not dunking on man's world or anything.
For the health of keeping people within their community. If you've created a community, one thing I mentioned to a progressive reporter recently is I was like, well, back when I was a progressive, there were all sorts of ideas and arguments and everything like that I had that I knew I needed to keep private if I was going to maintain my acceptance within the community. And within the new right, I'm able to say everything I believe about the world, right? And people will be like, well, I disagree with you here. Let's have a debate. But it is friendly. It's like they actually want to convince me. They're not like, shut up, you're not allowed to say that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that alongside arousal patterns, if 75% of people have some sort of a kink, and we're talking about like 20 kinks per person on average, right? Like if you create a community where on average people are supposed to know that if something came out about them or something like that, that it would be a reason to like shame and remove their platform. And the average influencer in this space feels that way. Like the average conservative influencer, by the statistics, has something that turns them on that they're hiding from you, and they would hope that their friend dunks their PC in water when they die. Like the fact that that is the case is, I think, not the way we should structure sexual morality within the community.
100%.
Because it's going to push people out and it's going to limit our audience. And instead to say, you know, whatever arouses you can arouse you, just don't act on it. Don't live your life in that way. And
Yeah,
don't
don't make it your identity and don't structure your life around it. Just like with drinking, just like with eating, just like with exercising, all like if it is not.
Don't force others to participate in it. Like this is what trans people do. They're basically forcing others to participate in like their arousal patterns, right? They're like, hey, everyone needs to, you know, and you can tell like part of this is about arousal. Like they're like, none of it, no, part of it's about arousal. Like I get it. Like for some of them, it definitely especially when they don't even try to pass. It's like, why are you forcing them to call you by a gender that you're not even attempting to look like? Like, oh, it's because you're getting turned on by having power over them, right? When you have the who is the swimming guy who wanted to be,
I can't remember his Leah Thomas. Sorry.
Leah Thomas, and we have reports that she would go into the locker room and hadn't had surgery, wasn't on anything, you know, and had a male
and her
penis.
flippy was out. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, why are you? We used to call this being a flasher. Like, what are you doing? Like, you can do this. If you just wanted to be seen as a woman, you wouldn't be doing this.
Well,
Clearly,
you know. Like part of me just wishes we lived in the Starship Troopers world of mixed gender restrooms and like everyone has
nothing
a male
would
like
make
locker room
Thomas more
approach.
angry than that, because if it's a mixed gender restroom, then she
oh yeah,
walk
that it's
in
not
with
special. Yeah.
yeah, it's not special. She's not forcing herself on other people, and that
Yeah,
appears
see,
to
no,
be
that's the
what
solution is you just eliminate all gender neutral bathrooms. You just eliminate all gender neutral spaces and suddenly everything's okay again.
Well, and I also like that because I think it desexualizes the other sex's body, and I think that that's the direction we should
Well,
go
that's
in
the point. I mean,
society.
in societies, when
Sex is
things
for
get
reproduction.
arbitrarily sexualized, suddenly they are sexualized, whether it's an armpit or an ankle or whatever. And if we just don't make it a thing, guess what? Suddenly, I mean, of course, for some
That's
people, they're gonna be
actually a
like,
really
man,
good
get a
point.
load of
You
our
know,
feet,
like,
but
in the Muslim world, right? Like you get like ankles and stuff like that sexualized because they're covered up. If you just had everyone like seeing naked males and females normalized, you wouldn't sexualize the other gender much at all. You just
well, I
really
wonder
wouldn't.
why,
It's
like
normal.
perhaps, so in Germany, you get a lot more nudist colonies and resorts and stuff.
Mhm.
And the primary kinks that you see associated with Germany are BDSM. They're power dynamic based kinks instead of like body stuff. Like when I think of Germany and I think of X-rated material, it is always power dynamic related and not related to body parts. And yet when I think of the X-rated material associated with, say, India or a lot of other regions that are much more conservative, then it's all about body parts. And that is really interesting.
Yeah. Is that a good thing? Yeah, I think it is a good thing. I think I think, well, because
A good thing for it not to be an obsession with body parts, but rather power dynamics.
Well, maybe. I don't know. Like, here's the funny thing. In Germany, like, why is it power dynamics that are the thing? It's because body parts are not shamed. Like, they see naked people all the time.
Yeah, it's like germane. It's like, well, of course, like my, uncle who goes to the nudist colony.
Equality is shamed in Germany because they're like so obsessively progressive. And so the idea that somebody would have power over another person is what is most
it's
germane, you would say, as an arousal pathway.
Interesting. Oh.
Anyway, I find, yeah, this is my thoughts after I think through this, is I would generally, like, if I had been around when this was happening, I would say, look, the way he handled this was gross. He shouldn't have involved the public in it. The way that he was defensive about this was also bad. But if you're talking about something like Gavin McKinney's, he's just like, look, you shouldn't be seen as unmanly because you're doing like prostate stimulation stuff. I'm like,
well, however, I think that it is important to separate your personal life from your professional life, even when
Yeah.
your professional life is about your personal life. That's not true. When people are influencers and it's all around their personalities, no, it's not about them as people. It's about the caricature that they've chosen to present online. And the caricature that these men had chosen to present was of that time classically conservative male, which didn't do the things that they suddenly started promoting. And it was them bringing their personal lives to work that messed that up. And again, that is something I just won't abide by. We don't abide by that professionally. Don't bring your personal life into work if it doesn't help work. And they made that mistake. And so I still hold them responsible for it. If it came out, for example, that like their search history was leaked, then I would not hold them at fault.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like search history being leaked, or like, who was it? Like, not Vosh. One of the guys like had pictures of hentai. We have had hentai leaked on this show, by the way. I've accidentally put it on not accidentally, it's a joke. There was the one about Yankees, the mild
Oh
Yankees
yeah,
episode.
no, you put
I put
the
hentai on the show, and other people were like, oh yeah, that's a great one.
I know that one.
They're like, I didn't expect him to actually put it on the screen. Just for people who don't know, it's called like My Childhood Friend It's Broken or something, and it's a
super
story
wholesome.
where they have a hentai story about what's the word? Gyaru girl, which is like when the Japanese women like do their face different colors and like have lots of piercings. And
Malibu
wear,
Barbie Japanese edition.
Garish outfits, and it's apparently you learn. I decided to read the whole thing after putting in the episode. I was like, I gotta make sure this actually isn't like bad. Apparently, you learned that in the past she was assaulted, and she dressed this way because she wanted to feel powerful and like reclaim a sense of power. And then she meets a childhood friend, and they fall in love, and then he does nice things for her, and over time she learns that she doesn't need to dress this way to feel like she's powerful, and she becomes a mom, and she has kids, and the series ends when her kid meets another kid playing in a park, and this is supposed to be a new childhood friendship that continues the cycle.
Aww.
Well, it's sad at the end, actually, because they're commenting on how they don't know anyone who has kids their kids' ages, and no one's having kids anymore. And,
well, yeah, but they're going to be the new culture that generates, or sorry, that inherits Japan. So that's
and all of the actual like hentai, like not safe for work scenes happen after that scene. It's
that's so weird. So there's this whole like life arc that's super wholesome, and then suddenly it becomes
they created the wholesome like arc, and like the not safe for work scenes are clearly supposed to happen at various parts of the life arc. Because obviously she gets pregnant.
But I just want to establish that like this is part of a wholesome, loving relationship, because that's part of the erotic experience for the reader.
Yeah, this is people who want the erotic experience of a wholesome, loving relationship that
and you can't get that full stimulus if you don't have the backstory that proves that that's happening, because it's really hard to like lay that exposition out in like 3 frames. But that's really funny. That's really
but
funny.
I don't want there's like 215 panels of this. It's like really
gosh.
long. I want that to be when Malcolm accidentally leaked hentai episode that he had that one where
no, I don't think that's when it came out, though, that you have in the past consumed hentai, because you've talked in the past about the fact that you like, or both of us agree that in an ideal world, no porn would depict real people.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% for only.
And that you expressed then that you found real porn to be extremely disgusting. So I'm pretty sure that anyone who was actually paying attention at the time would be like, oh, then I guess Malcolm likes hentai, because like, what else are you gonna like if you can't?
But if you wonder why I find it disgusting, I just can't like look at a real person in that sort of a position.
There's somebody's daughter and or son.
Yeah, like this is somebody's daughter, somebody's wife, somebody's.
Like, they probably have kids. It's rough.
Like, this is gross. Like, this is a human life that we're talking about here. Like, why is this okay to get off? No, I think it's
rough.
I don't know if other people have that reaction. Like, maybe other people don't. Maybe other people are just like, no, but like in this context, it's not them. It's just a picture of them. But like for me, it's like,
I don't know. Like I was just thinking about, would I feel different if they were someone, if it was you, like would I feel but like then if ever I was watching even video of like you made something for me privately or something, I'd be like, oh, what if this leaks? I'd be so uncomfortable. And I think about that a lot when I think about the other people. I'm like, oh, like, how old are they now? Are people comparing their younger body to their older body? Like, what if their mother sees this? And you just start thinking way too much about it. And then you start thinking about yourself. And that's one of the reasons I think why many female audiences like yaoi, which is man-on-man drawn like manga and stories. It's sometimes explicit and sometimes not, because at that point you're totally taken out of the situation. Not only is it drawn, so you're not thinking about humans in general, but there are no women at all. So you're not thinking about you as a woman. Am I pretty enough? I think that there's a big theme in many genres of erotic material that are, instead of optimized around specific arousal pathways, optimized around avoiding specific, if not disgust pathways, then anxiety pathways.
Well, no, I'm exactly the same way. What a lot of people is now that AI stuff has gotten good. I don't even need to worry that like a human like
drew
maybe,
it, and yeah,
humans were involved at some point in the process,
Yeah,
but I don't
yeah.
need to think about some guy in his basement drawing this, right? Like,
yes, that's true. That is kind of a turnoff when you think about it. Thanks for ruining that for me.
but I also point out with all of this, you know, the reason I say all this is I'm like, okay, so what if some guy is actually like a subby guy and he's in a relationship and his partner is into this and they're into like him being a sub in the bedroom, right? You know, like, are we supposed to be like, that guy can't be a good man? They can't be a good masculine man.
Yeah,
they can't
just
be a
come
good
on.
dad. Like, I think what we need to say is like, look, if you're a subby guy, and this is why, because I feel bad for all of the subby guys, because there's like a lot of subby guys out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, like the numbers indicate that there are a lot of submissive
like,
guys out there.
If you're a subby guy, that doesn't mean that you cannot be the perfect masculine man. You can be a good dad who is there for your kids. You can be in a relationship with your wife that is stable and supporting. And when the lights are off and you're doing your own thing, that can be your own thing. And I don't think that we as a community benefit from those guys feeling in constant fear that they are going to have everybody hate them if they ever found out about that. I think that is not a healthy thing to
and that fear leads to a lot of avoidant problematic behavior. That's why you see this problem in states where porn is like banned or deeply looked negatively upon by the predominant religion, that you see much more problematic behavior. And yeah, this is definitely something. Shaming is the wrong thing to do, but not so shaming the fact that you feel it bad, but pursuing it at the cost of your productivity also bad. that should probably, and if not shamed, met with a like the same kind of concerned reaction that you react to someone who has an eating problem or a drinking problem or some other, like a gambling problem. Right?
Yes,
like those
no,
are things. It's not like, oh, you're disgusting. You gamble. You sports gamble. You have a sports gambling app. I can't believe it. I'm never going to be your friend and you can't be an influencer. No, it's like, hey, dude, are you okay? Like you're ruining your savings. Like you're not going to achieve your life goals if you keep doing this. And
I think that is such a great way to frame it, is that we should focus on these sorts of sexual prohibitions in the same way we focus on like gambling prohibitions. Like they're very, very serious and they can hurt other people around them, but you need to frame them with, you know, compassion in this way and be like, hey, like, do you have a problem here? Instead of, you know, one of the funniest things is everyone's like, people thought that like you weren't sexually gratifying me enough and that like they sent you emails about that.
Yes, I've received multiple messages from people who are like,
are they usually from women or men?
It's been both, actually. Yeah.
I can tell you that is not the case.
Oh, now they're going to write to me again and be like, he's saying that. This is his call for help, Simone. This is his call for help. He's calling for help right now.
Understand how inefficient sex is.
I understand. I don't think they understand. I don't think they understand that like we're at the precipice, the turning point of the entire future of humanity, and that every hour that we spend doing something indulgent is an hour that we're not maybe tipping the scales in favor of human flourishing instead of extinction. Hello, people.
Timelines are so short in terms of like what we're building and everything like that. I just feel like Like, did they not get that because we're working on the same projects together. So like if I take Simone's time for like an hour of sex,
Yeah.
like you only get so many hours a day. Like it's not that we never do it, but it's such a waste.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see what they have to say next.
I don't know. I love it how you for a while were like really acting weird about this with me. Like
I was like, Malcolm, whenever you want, like we're here. We can block out time.
and I was like, Simone.
Because y'all got in my head.
I was like,
Malcolm,
no,
you
you
were like-
do not understand how much I appreciate the work you're
But
doing. right now.
whenever you want, Malcolm.
I was like, what is this worth more than the current Andreessen application, the current survival and
I
flourishing?
know it's not. I know,
the
but
current,
like just in case, this is like one of those double reverse blind.
No, but it's
lies.
like no, literally, what am I putting off for this? We've got 4 kids that we're raising as well.
Yeah,
Like,
speaking of which, one of them woke up, so I gotta.
all right, love you to death, Simone.
I love you.
What
too.
am I doing for dinner tonight? Oh, yeah, it's the crumble.
Yeah, but also I'm gonna try something that I've never tried before that I'm very curious about it. I'm gonna try it too. Shout out to Margaret for telling me it's possible.
Are you gonna tell me?
You will find out.
What is it?
If it succeeds tonight. I'm
What?
not gonna tell you. I'm not gonna tell you. But it is something that you and I both like and that we can't get in America.
Oh, by the way, Scotch eggs.
That's what I'm gonna say.
Ah,
Okay,
wait.
okay.
Oh my god. But okay, so if you're gonna do Scotch eggs, don't bother with frying the rice. Just do like regular rice, and I'll mix the crumble.
No. Because what if they really don't turn out? This is my first time trying them.
Regular rice with crumble and soy sauce will be fine.
Malcolm, just let me do my thing, but let me go now so I can actually prep everything. I love you.
All right, love you to death.
Why? I have this permanent crease in my eyebrow region, but I realize now you do too. So
You what in your eyebrow region?
permanent crease, like a little. Look at your furrow lines. Even when you're not furrowing, they're still there, and that's the problem. Well, not the problem. It's just naturally part of our aging process.
Well, I wonder, do you have the smile lines yet?
Yeah.
Well,
But that's your fault. That is your fault. The furrowing is my fault. The smiling is your fault because you make my life too freaking awesome and we laugh way too much.
Simone, no matter how big your wrinkles get, I will not leave you. So don't you worry, okay?
We'll see. We'll just see how big they need to get.
No, we'll see
Running
if
away.
you stop being able to have kids. That's where things get dicey.
Jesus. Just in case anyone thought that you were being nice and charitable.